and what they wrote and why, and maybe a little bit about what else they're doing for Sherlock Holmes. I always say the things I do for that man. So, so I think I'm going to start with Derrick today. Oh, he's like, oh, me?
I'm probably one of the more awake people in the group, though.
Yeah, well, first, wait, one more thing. First. I do want to say thank you to Paul for being here. I realize it's 5 a.m. in the UK, and we appreciate you. I would say burning the midnight oil. I don't even know what you're doing, but we are glad that you're here. I think we had one more that was coming, and I don't see her, so maybe she nodded off in the chair. She just couldn't make it. Okay, so Bill already told you a little bit about the book, so I don't need to go into all that. Mark Jones, the lovely gentleman who's one half of the doings of Doyle and now the commissioning editor for the Sherlock Holmes Society of London's Journal. This was his brainchild, and he had hoped to work on it, and real life got in the way, and things just got in the way for several years. And so we're really glad to bring it to life now. So I think I'm going to start, like I said, with Derrick. So Derrick, tell us a little bit about who you are and about which story that you wrote for us, please.
Sure. Well, I'm the publisher of the book, so I should probably say that. So
Besides that,
I'm,
yeah.
yeah. So I'm a writer, obviously, and I've done a number of Sherlock Holmes and Arthur Conan Doyle projects, and I was very excited about this particular one, because it just seemed like such a natural marriage of Holmes to this particular selection of Doyle's writings. And the story I did was the usher of Lee's school, because I'm a teacher. That's one of my jobs. And I just thought it's such a wonderful little mystery inside a school setting. One of my favorite Sherlock Holmes stories is The Three Students for similar reasons. And I thought this story kind of writes itself. It was very easy to insert Sherlock Holmes into it because it almost feels like a Sherlock Holmes story without Sherlock Holmes. At least the original one does. And so putting Holmes and Watson in just seemed like a natural fit. And it wasn't very difficult in a sense to write, except for the fact that Doyle's language is so rich in the original story, and just trying to match that was a bit of a challenge. But I had a lot of fun with this one.
Okay. So I was wondering as a teacher, when you were writing this, if you were thinking about what it would be like at your school if you had someone teaching there that was so horrid to the children and horrid to the other people who worked there and was just awful. I was just wondering if you could imagine what that would be like.
It's not that hard to imagine.
Uh-oh.
I mean, there's always a bad apple in the bunch. I would say not as horrible as Theophilus, the villain in this particular story, who pretty much beats the students at times. Obviously that doesn't happen anymore. Um, but there always are those rude people, and what I enjoy about the story originally is Harold Weld being like, what is with this guy? This guy's just like, what's his problem? And I think we've all had people we've worked with in our lives where we start with that kind of question, like, what exactly is this person? Why are they so grumpy? Why are they such, what's going on here? And then as it builds, like, then why is the headmaster putting up with him? And then that, of course, leads to other questions, which, again, I mean, I don't want to give everything away. I'm sure a lot of the viewers, sorry, of this program probably read the story, the original, but even so, I don't want to give too much away.
That's right. Okay. All right. Well, I thank you. So we're just going to keep moving because we don't want to take up a whole lot of time. Thank you, Derek.
Sure. Thank
Appreciate
you.
you always. Um, so Brian, the other half of Belanger Books, made this absolutely beautiful cover for us. I don't know if you can see that very well. Sorry,
Yeah,
I've got glare.
yeah, it's lovely.
But
Yeah.
it's just gorgeous, and we've heard so many compliments about how pretty that the book looks. It's based on Doyle's original Around the Fire story collection cover, but just a little bit different. And I just think it's beautiful. So thank you, Belanger Books, for that. Um, okay, So, Nancy Holder, where are you? Unmute yourself there, Nancy Holder.
Up, up. Okay, got it. All right, Margie.
Okay, so Nancy and I edited a book together before, Sherlock Holmes of Baking Street. Some of you may have seen that, where we did a fundraiser for the Beacon Society. And when Mark Jones first had the idea for this book, he asked Nancy and I to do it with him, and the three of us do it together. And we just never could make calendars line up. But luckily, Mark wrote the introduction and Nancy wrote a story. So, Nancy, tell these people who you are just a little bit, please, and then a little bit about your story.
Okie dokie. I'm Nancy Holder, and I've been a Sherlockian for many, many years. And I think pertinent to tonight, Margie actually started writing the story with me, but she was the editor, so she had other things to do and another story to write. And she and I are the co-editors of the Terror of Blue John Gap project for the Arthur Conan Doyle Society. We just turned in another edition of it, and we've been working on that for 3 years. And these are Doyle's other stories, or I'm sorry, this is another story of Doyle's that doesn't have Sherlock Holmes in it at all. And so we ask people from around the world to write annotations, little bits about the different pages of the manuscript that Dartmouth College owns, the original manuscript of The Terror of Blue John Gap. So that's kind of where my head's at because we just turned it in. And so I wrote a story based on the Brazilian cat. And I will say, Derrick, I'm impressed because I found it a bit challenging. The original story is written by a narrator, another person in the story, and I had a little trouble moving it into Sherlock's and Watson's life, but I did it. It was a lot of fun, and I have fond memories of this story because when I first joined the SOBs, the Sound of the Baskervilles, our Seattle group, I could not, for the life of me, picture the surroundings of the Brazilian cat. And Margie actually drew a little diagram. We didn't even know each other back then. And so hats off, Margie. And she organized one and the one who sees space. So that's pretty much the story of the Brazilian cat. It's called the Jungle Cat in the book.
Okay, so tell them a little bit about why I really wanted you to do that story. It has something to do with your cat father. Tell them a little bit about cat father.
Oh, right. I forgot that. I wrote a short story for another anthology. I'm very active in horror writers' worlds. And this is a story about a cat that the Frankenstein creature adopts. And it turns out he calls himself Cat Father. And it turns out there is a cat father in Islamic tradition where he was the father of cats, this specific prophet. And so I thought it was pretty cool to discover that. But it's about the Frankenstein monster. So I'm sure Guillermo del Toro is going to put that in the new movie. I'm just positive.
I think you should. Maybe you
Yes,
should.
yes. Steal from the
So
best.
you have a cat father in both of your stories, and I love the way you wrote the relationship with with the cat and the father in your story for this
Right,
book
right.
because
So as
he
the
really
original,
suffers
yeah,
from the cat having to be
yeah.
taken out of
Yeah.
business. So yeah,
In,
so that's
in
very
this story, in the
interesting.
Brazilian cat, the one of the main actors of the story has a jungle cat and loves this jungle cat. So that I'd never put it together for this explanation, but that's why there are two cat stories in my life right now. I'm not a cat person, I'm a dog person. But
Okay, I
let
actually forgot to ask Derek this question, so I'll go back to it in a minute. So tell us what else you're working on
Is that for me?
besides the Blue John Gap. So in your writing world, are you doing anything special right now? I lost her. You're muted, Nance.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking to Derrick, so I muted
No,
myself.
I said I will go back to Derek in a minute. I'm sorry.
Right now, having just done the Arthur Conan Doyle bit, I'm sort of at rest, but I did want to say, because I don't think she's coming tonight, but Katy Darby, one of us, wrote this really cool book, The Unpierced Heart. I'm about to read it. I'm going on a cruise with my little sister to Alaska, and I bought it specifically to take with me. I can't wait to read it because her story was wonderful. So I'll talk about a colleague instead of myself.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go back to Derek really quick. Derek, tell us what else you're writing for Sherlock Holmes.
Well, I've got a book coming out. It should be out. It'll be on Backer Kit in a few weeks. September 9th actually it launches, called Sherlock Holmes Holiday Whodunits. It's a follow-up to the Crimes for Christmas book I did last year, which is pretty much an advent calendar of Sherlock Holmes short stories, where you read one story like on December 1st, and then December 2nd, then you have the all night to think of the ending, and then December 2nd, I give you the conclusion. So that's coming up. And then since Bob's on here, I'll also put a plug that I don't know if you can see this with my background, but Bob's got a book called But I Digress, Sherlock, The Musings of a Sherlockian Motormouth, which I'm publishing and comes out. Again, that'll probably be out in about a month. And it's a really wonderful collection of the most interesting little stories. So that's what I'm doing also in my publishing world. So a little bit of my writing, a little bit of my publishing there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry if I didn't ask you that a minute ago. Katy Darby did not make it, did she? No,
No,
I
she
don't
hasn't
think
joined
so.
us.
Okay, so maybe she'll turn up yet. She, bless her heart, tried to log in about 3 hours ago. She got her time zones backwards, so she may have nodded off there in London. So, all right. So next, let's talk to Rebecca. Rebecca, where are you?
Right here. Can you see
Right
me? Can
here.
you hear me?
Okay. Okay, so Rebecca, tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about your story.
If you hear a weird sound in the background, my husband is making funny sounds from the kitchen. He's trying to annoy me. You just ignore that. Anyway,
Okay.
uh, I'm Rebecca. I am the editor of an e-zine called Eternal Haunted Summer that runs poetry and mythology and short fiction and things like that. And my story is The Ghosts of Each Show, which was the sequel to The Pot of Caviar. So I got to write a sequel to a horrible story about a unintentional mass suicide.
As one does. No,
Yes.
I'm teasing you. Well, you did a beautiful job. Let me just say that. I had a lot of fun
Thank you.
reading it. And I think everyone
Thank
here
you.
will agree with me who has read it because it was pretty fascinating. So did you, I was going to ask you, it was a little hard, I would think, with that story with the pot of caviar because the guy who gives them all the poison caviar thinks he's doing the right thing.
Mhm.
So is he really a villain? So I thought it was interesting how you deal with that idea of how bad of a villain is your villain really?
Mhm.
Did that have any bearing on how you wrote your story? Was how how to deal with that part?
I considered that approach, but I ultimately decided that I really wanted to focus on was the one survivor. I wanted to see how this affected her, what she thought of that incident, because he's dead. There's nothing I can really do with him after that at that
Right.
point, but I can
Right.
deal with her and what she's going through. So I focused on her.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought it was very, very clever. It is interesting in the book. We did not plan this.
Mhm.
I really should admit that because we planned everything. No, we didn't. But half of us wrote sequels and half of us reimagined the original story. And so in the book, and then we printed them in the order that Doyle's publisher did, and it works out almost sequel, rewrite, sequel, and it's very interesting to read. And
Mhm.
so I enjoyed your sequel very, very much. And
Thank
it
you.
is interesting to think about that young woman, very young,
Hmm.
who wakes up and everything she knows is dead in front of her. And
Hmm.
so it's really is a terrible and grotesque story. I thought
Yes.
some of the stories in Doyle's collection aren't that terrible and grotesque. They're fun. or as
Mhm.
Mark Jones says, they're a jolly good yarn. But that one really is very sad. So,
Very heartbreaking, very, very traumatic. Not something you want to read on a bad day.
no, no. So, what else are you working on going forward?
Sherlock specific or not Sherlock specific?
Yes, just
Okay.
tell us.
I did write an occult Sherlock Holmes story a couple years ago called The Adventure of the Fairy Coffin, and I'm slowly working on a sequel to that one. And in the meanwhile, I have an espionage story coming out in Thrill Ride magazine. There's a running gun battle between two spies inside the Statue of Liberty during a hurricane in 1944, so that was a lot of fun to write. And
Oh my God.
I edited a vampire anthology, which is actually coming out tomorrow. So that's that was a lot of fun to do.
I thought that cover was fantastic, and the title is just delightful. Tell them the title in case they didn't see it go whooshing by.
Vampires Save the Night, Heroes, Anti-Heroes, and Not So Reformed Villains.
This sounds good. Well, I'm
Mhm.
looking forward to reading it. So
Thank
tell
you.
me a little bit real quick about you had. No, have I mixed you up? Never mind. You don't have that. I was thinking that you had another series that had Holmes and Watson in it, but never mind. Um, Something you said on your Kickstarter interview I thought was interesting that you would tell people who want to write Sherlock Holmes to not assume that you can just walk in and write a story featuring them.
Mhm.
So
Yes,
tell me what your thoughts are about that.
I learned that working with you is I turned my story in and you immediately saw, I think, three chronological problems with the story because your knowledge is just so vast. You're like, this needs to be fixed and that needs to, I said, no problem. I can absolutely do that. It was wonderful working with you because you caught those things right away. You do need a really significant amount of knowledge about Holmes to be able to write these stories or work with somebody like you who does. So it was delightful to work with you on it.
Oh, thank you. Nitpickers, and wannabe chronologists. That's all it is. But I really think it is important if you want serious Sherlockian readers to appreciate pastiches. I
Mhm.
think you really have to focus on being true to
Mhm.
Doyle's work. And
Mhm.
I don't even like to use words that he didn't use. I think I've only done it twice. If I have a phrase, I will do the search of the Conan Doyle Encyclopedia because I just feel like it's worth that kind of nitpicking.
Mhm.
Poor Derrick, I poked him a little bit about using the word ashtray. He'll tell you it's like because Doyle didn't. But anyway, all right. Well, thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate you, and you guys would really enjoy that story. I promise, because it was a tough one to write.
Thank you
Paul
very much.
Hiscock, are you still awake?
Yes, running on
Yes.
caffeine, but still here.
Okay, so it's what, about 5:30 in the morning where you are?
Yes, just coming up to that.
Okay, so tell us where you are and tell us a little bit about what you do.
I'm Paul. I'm in London at the moment, this ungodly hour. And I, most here, writer of Sherlock Holmes pastiches, among other things, but that seems to be most of what I write at the moment. And for this collection, I tackled the mystery of the man with the watches.
So what did you find challenging about it?
Ah, well, the thing that worried me was, well, I chose it because of the name. I chose it because I looked at the name and I thought this sounds like a really great story, and volunteered to do it, and then I read it, which is never a good way round to do oof things. um, and then I read it and I read the comments on it and discovered that it was a story that apparently had a detective solving the mystery, and I had this complete panic attack about, well, what am I going to add to this? Because most of the stories in the collection, as you said, are grotesque, supernatural, all these sorts of things to really challenge how to fit Holmes in. And I thought, this is too easy. How am I going to actually come up with something that's different and exciting compared to the original story? Um, which so that worried me for a bit until I realised that the detective solving the mystery makes a complete hash of it in the original story. His solution is complete and utter drivel. At that point, that clearly wasn't Sherlock Holmes, and I had a whole new mystery to solve.
Okay, good. All right. Now there's something, isn't there something in that story where they refer to someone that you think it might be Holmes? Am I mixing that up with
Yes,
something else?
yeah. As I said, there's a notable detective who writes into one of the newspapers with his solution to the problem.
That's it. That's it.
And
Okay, you're right.
as I said, which might be Holmes, but as I said, given that Holmes would never make the rookie mistakes that this detective makes, clearly it is somebody else. So
Oh, that part. Okay, okay. I
yeah,
was
the
thinking
question came to my
something.
mind. The question came to my mind. Well, who, what? How does that fit into it? How do I fit this other detective into the narrative? And that became the springboard for my most of my what made my version of the story different.
Okay. Your story was a little longer than some of the other ones that I had, but after reading the original, there's a lot there. There's an
Yeah,
awful
I
lot
mean,
there. And
uh,
so that actually made sense. Do they actually used to have watch salesmen that would go around with these things all in their pockets and
well, I
literally
mean, I
go door to
believe so.
door?
I mean, it used to be that you'd have salesmen going around with sort of suitcases of things and stuff. I mean, but yeah, to carry all the watches on your one person seems a bit extreme. But on the other hand, something that valuable, want to keep on your person, keep safe from. The last thing you'd want is to have more in a suitcase and somebody nick it from you. So I suppose
Fair
it
enough.
makes some sort of sense, but it's a fascinating image. This guy sort of festooned with watches down to the woman's wristwatch on his
Right.
wrist as well.
And I think it refers to Tiffany or something, right? Wasn't there some kind of reference? Or was that
Yes,
a pastiche I read? Sorry, y'all. It's all
I,
mixed together.
I'm. I can't remember.
That's all
I
right.
can't
That's all
remember
right.
which is which side, but yeah, yes, they. As I said, one of them was an ornate woman's watch as opposed to all the pocket watches and things that was most of what he was carrying. So
So do you think Doyle included this in the grotesque and the terrible just for the locked room aspect of it? That
I
they open
I
the carriage and there's this dead body with the bullet through the heart and nobody knows
I
how it got.
I think that's what it is. I mean, the Doctor mysteries are always fascinating, and the idea of sort of how somebody could have committed this murder, and and also the fact that at least initially, it looks like you've got a body that's appeared on a train and three people who've completely evaporated into nothing off the train. I think, yeah,
That is pretty terrible. So,
yeah. I mean, I think it's one of the whole locked room aspect of it and the disappearing people makes it seem like it might be something supernatural, something uncanny. And I think that's how it fits in. But yes, from the horrific perspective, it's a lot milder than some of the other stories, I have to say, which which I must say I wasn't necessarily sorry about. I do write a bit of horror, but it's not my natural element.
I always think about poor John Linwood Grant. He got the one with the unicorn. So, he volunteered for it and did a marvelous
Yeah,
job. I
well,
wouldn't have the faintest idea what to do with a unicorn. So, he made it work. So,
yeah.
okay. So before I let you go, tell me about what you're working on. And I noticed you said something one time that you were writing punked fairy tales. What is a punked fairy tale?
Punked fairy tales. I've written a couple now. This is traditional fairy tales and myths retold in, well, initially it was steampunk sort of settings. That's where the punked bits comes from, but it's expanded out with people work with on that project to all the sorts of other punks. So I wrote a version of Sleeping Beauty that was clock punk, so everything was clockwork, and that that was quite in that world. That was quite fascinating. So a clockwork Sleeping Beauty in that particular one, and then the other one that I've tackled was retelling of my favourite legend, which is of the dragons under the mountain in the mountains of Wales in Erie, and turning that into a slightly environmental solar punk fable of the future. So
Okay,
that's
I've got to get out of the world of Sherlock Holmes and Arthur Conan Doyle more because I'm just missing things. I'm telling you, because I wasn't aware of that. I see. Has Katy made it? Katy made it.
yes.
Yay. Okay. All right. Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
I've lost Katy. Stuff. That's all right. Katy, I'm glad that you're here. I'm sorry it's 5:30 in the morning. Um, I really do have questions for you too.
Not a problem. It's fine.
I had them just a second ago because, things just vanished. It's like those three people on the train. They just go poof. I'll find it. Naching, where are you? Hello. So I will say that Nancy Holder, Naching, and myself, we are all three Sound of the Baskervilles. So here in the Seattle area, and I believe one of your members here, Roseanne. I think we had dinner once in Seattle. You may not remember. It was many years ago. We'll talk about that after that because we've got
Okay,
one
with Sonia. With
with
Sonia.
Sonia Featherston, the lovely Sonia Featherston. Yes, who's also a Sound of the Baskervilles. So, okay, sorry. I digress. Naching, tell us who you are and what you're doing.
Well, I'm an author and an editor and a proofreader, and I work for Crystal Lake Publishing as a talent relations manager. And I also volunteer for the Horror Writers Association. I'm a member of the Mystery Writers of America, and I am in the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association as well. And my story was The Brown Hand, which was a really fun ghost story, which when I first read it, I knew there was something missing. And that thing that was missing was Holmes.
Okay.
And so he was like a puzzle piece.
So, what did you find the biggest challenge with that story, other than finding
Uh,
the missing hand?
I think the biggest challenge was it's a supernatural story, and we're dealing with someone where ghosts do not apply. And I had to keep the supernatural element, yet keep it in the Holmes world with both feet planted firmly on the ground.
All right. Well, I think you did a really good job. I enjoyed it. I've had and heard lots of comments about this story. People are really enjoying it. Of course, it's
Oh,
an
great.
interesting story to begin with. I mean, Doyle gave you some good leg up there, but you really did a nice job with it. People are liking it. Um, so you had told us before at another program we did that you were inspired by a story that was it your dad used to tell you? Who was he? Something there was about
Okay, so the man with the golden arm.
yes.
That was the other reason I picked the story because it's one of those appendage stories with the stolen appendage, and you have a ghost that's pursuing that appendage. And so it's like a campfire story. It was the essential campfire story. And so I don't know if anybody's heard the man with the golden arm. Do you want to hear the man with the golden arm?
Yes, please.
Oh, there will be.
Okay. Okay. Once upon a time, there was a man, and he was in a gold camp. And he got very sick, but he had a lot of gold and he had an arm made. And he had it all in, well, when he got sick, he said, I don't want anybody to have my arm. No one should take my arm. I want to be buried with it. And so when he died, he was buried with the arm. Well, a thief came to town and he'd heard many rumors about the golden arm. So he went over and he went to the man's grave and he dug up the arm and he took it off the body and he took it to his hotel room. And that night, he started to hear strange noises. He was in his room getting ready to eat, and he heard, Where's my golden arm? Who's got my golden arm? And he thought it was just the wind, so he didn't really pay attention to it. And then a few minutes later, he heard, Where's my golden arm? Who has my golden arm? And it was closer. And he got a little bit nervous. But he still didn't pay attention to it. And so he went about his things and he went to bed. And he was in getting all comfortable and he heard, Where's my golden arm? Who has my golden arm? And he got scared and he put the sheet over his head and he was shaking. And he hears the door open. Creak. And he started to hear the footsteps. And someone opened his bedroom door. Creak. And approached the bed. And he heard, Who's got my golden arm? Where's my golden arm? You got it.
That's really okay. That's got Girl Scouts written all over it. I love it. Thank you. So really quickly, you're gonna have a hard time topping that. Just saying. Go ahead and just tell us real quick what you're writing now, because you're always busy. You're always busy.
Oh yes. I write horror as well. So I have a horror novel I'm working on, but I also have some stories coming out. I'm going to be in Sherlock Holmes and A Year of Mystery, Richard Ryan's anthologies, and David Markham's Solar Ponds, A Year of Mystery, and both all Belanger books. And also, I'm going to be in Occult Detective Magazine with my sweet little occult detective, Lady Dahlia Battle Roost, and her ghost butler, Whitney, and they're solving another mystery. And that's what
I
I've got
wasn't
going
familiar
on.
with that, but Ghostbuster. I'm Butler. I like those words together. That sounds like fun. Okay, Naching, thank you. And thank you for the story. That
Oh,
was
thank
just
you.
fantastic.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, Katy M. I have two Katys. Where's my Katy M? Is she here? Did I lose her? There she is. All right, Katy, I lost you there for a second. Hello. I haven't seen you before. We've only
Yes,
talked
we've
by emails.
only
I was like,
emailed.
where's
Yeah.
Katy? Here you are. Okay, so Katy, tell us a little bit about who you are and about your story.
Yeah, I'm Katy. I've written quite a few short stories for Belanger books before, and Margie reached out when she was looking for folks to contribute to this anthology through them as well. And I was like, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to. I had never read any of the stories before, so I kind of just said, yeah, sure, why not? Leaped right in. And I chose the story, The Club-Footed Grocer. And I originally had this kind of big, like really overly complicated, like thing where Sherlock Holmes would wind up being one of the people who, one of the crew of sailors who's harassing the club-footed grocer, trying to get him to reveal where he's hidden his jewels. And as I was writing it, I was like, yeah, this sounds great. How do I fit Watson?
That's important.
And I couldn't. And I went, okay, so scrap this whole idea, start fresh. And so instead, we took it back to London and changed the occupation of the grocer to a pawn shop owner instead, and did a rather large amount of research on what pawn shops looked like in Victorian era London. And then yeah, and then the person in trouble goes to Watson initially first. His uncle is acting strange. He thinks that it might be more medically related than anything nefarious, but sure enough, turns out it's much more in the way of Holmes's line of work than Watson's. So it was a lot of fun.
Okay. Now, your story didn't have, I would say, it didn't have any supernatural elements. So it
No.
might have been
Yeah, I
in some
kind of
ways easier to bring Holmes in since
Yeah.
you just figure out why this guy's acting so weird, other than he's a jerk,
Right.
and where the diamonds are. So
Yeah, it was the harder. Yeah, I didn't have to worry about any supernatural elements. I more just had to like figure out how, because the way that the original story is constructed, you're just thrown right into the middle of it, and you're learning. It peels away what's going on little by little until the very end, where there's the final big reveal of what's been going on this whole time. So the challenge of this one was bringing Holmes in. How do I peel those layers back and do the slow reveal without, and still keep that suspense, even though Holmes has figured it out within the first 2 pages, so trying to trying to keep that suspense going to the end.
I thought it was fun that you added the piece that Holmes had investigated the original diamond theft.
Yeah.
And had suspicions of your pawnbroker at the time. So I thought that was kind of fun because he could just, wait a minute, this sounds a little fishy over here. So that was pretty great. Well, I'm glad that you decided to come on, and I'm sorry you had to do all that work and scrap the first story, but we must have Watson. We must have Watson.
Absolutely.
I might have cried if you'd sent me something without Watson. It just
I figured.
It's okay. I know you mentioned you have something called The Adventures of Watson Sherlock. What is that?
Yeah. So it is a cyberpunk mystery series. I've got 3 books so far. I've been working on the 4th one for way too long. It'll be done eventually. But I'm a sucker for pastiches that combine that do genre crossovers. Like, if Sherlock Holmes is going to be in any sort of weird sci-fi, Western, whatever bizarre thing, I'm going to read it. So this is so my books are set in a kind of in a cyberpunk alternate future, and it's about a doctor whose name is Watts, who quits his job for moral reasons, because he's tired of working for the corrupt medical establishment, and he has to find a place to live. So he gets a room with a guy who has come to the city and whose name is Sherlock, and he's emulating Sherlock Holmes. He has decided that he's going to reject all of the modern technology and stuff and just live his life like the great detective. This goes about as well as you're imagining. Which is not at all. But it's this fun little clash of cultures, and it's very soap opera. It is very heavy on the dialogue and on the like the personal, just like their relationship. I like to think that the mysteries are also pretty well written and they do solve mysteries, but that's really just kind of you're in it more for just the thought experiment of what are these people doing?
Okay, well, sounds interesting. So you've done three and you're working on the next one. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Thank you.
sure.
Lisa, where are you? Lisa. There
Hi,
we
Lisa.
go. Okay. Unmute yourself, my late Freddie. My friend.
There I am. I had to
Okay.
get
Tell us
I had to
about
get
you.
my mouse to work.
Oh, okay. Wake it up. Wake it up. Now, if
Tell
I remember
tell you about me.
well, if I remember correctly, Bill said you have spoken to this group in the past. So
Yeah, yeah.
you are a
Quite a
familiar
bit of-
face here.
Yeah, yeah. I used to do a series on. I used to do a monthly essay, and it appeared in their um, newsletter on
Oh.
something from the canon that would then appear. I would expand on it. It was something that was mentioned in the canon that made a lot of sense to Victorians that didn't necessarily make a lot of sense to somebody in the 21st century, such as, he said, my ancestors were country squires. Well, what's a country squire? And why is that important? And it has nothing to do with Sancho Panza, the night squire. It was very, very different.
Okay. Well, I would want you to keep that straight. I do imagine, though, that what a wonderful fertile ground for your fiction. If you've done all
Yeah,
that
well,
research.
it was kind of the essays, the research was because of my fiction. Because I have a series that starts off when Sherlock Holmes is 13. It's an origin story for Sherlock Holmes. And so I needed to know what a country squire was, so I knew what it was like for when Sherlock was growing up, what was his life like. So and so that's where, and I published these essays, and that's the Life and Times of Sherlock Holmes series that I have. That I would pull in, I would put these together. So anybody who needs to do research on Sherlock Holmes or Victorian England, there's probably something in there somewhere about it. Something, everything from Gassagenes to what dressmakers at the time, how you got your dresses. So in fashion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you've done your early case files of Sherlock Holmes. You said you started at 13, and so you've got several of those.
I have
Right.
4, and I'm working on number 5.
All right.
And I just completed a novel, the first draft. Can't even give you a title. I have a working title, but I don't think it'll go anywhere. And I just put the end on the first draft 2 days ago. So,
Good feeling.
and I can't believe it. I looked up when I started that, and it'd been 4 years. September, 4 years ago was when I
Almost
first
exactly.
did my, when I laid down the original outline. I had lunch with a friend, and we talked about, I said, I love Sherlock Holmes, but I wanted to do I don't want to be just Sherlock Holmes. And we had a discussion, and I got some ideas there that I fleshed out into an outline 4 years ago. So
Congrats. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about what you did for us.
Yeah, mine was the Lost Special, and that's, I know, part of, some people consider it part of the Apocrypha for the Sherlock Holmes stories. There are a couple of different things that are mentioned in it. One is, he says at one point, there's that somebody who is an amateur reasoner of some celebrity sends in a letter to try to, that explains probably what happened, or what needs to be investigated to find out what happened to the Lost Special, which was a train that started off but never arrived. And they couldn't find anything along the track. So what happened to the lost special? And in the letter, he says, when the impossible has been eliminated, the residuum, however improbable, must contain the truth. Sounds a little bit familiar, doesn't it?
Familiar, but not as easily off the tongue as the other
No,
versions.
Yeah. It's that residuum that's in there.
Yeah, right. Okay, so tell us what your story's about. I mean, how you approached it.
Okay, well, so I did a sequel because, I mean, if you've already got him in there, but I also explain how he knew what he knew, how Sherlock Holmes knew what he knew about it and what he did, and it takes in the original, it makes a reference to the collier, an English Camorra, and the Camorra is the Napoleon, or from Naples. I think that's Napoleon, right? Italy. Neapolitan. Yeah, that sounds better than Napoleon. Neapolitan. The Neapolitan equivalent of the mafia. And so that became the black diamond, and collier means dealing with coal. It was the coal industry. So you're talking about a coal industry mafia. And so that became the Black Diamond Brotherhood, which is the title of my story, The Adventure of the Black Diamond Brotherhood. And so in the original story, there's somebody who confesses. His name is, I can't read my own handwriting, Herbert de Lernac, who says he solves the mystery. He says, this is what happened. And somebody hired me to do all this. And if you don't, he's been sentenced to death. And he says, if you don't commute my sentence, I'm going to spill all the beans about who hired me. So that's kind of where Sherlock comes in the sequel, is exposing or controlling the Black Diamond Brotherhood. And it was a lot of fun to write. I threw in some interesting tidbits. There's a meeting at one point at an ice rink, which was not with ice, but with pig fat, which was actually true.
I spent for some time trying to visualize how one skates on pig fat, and I just couldn't do it.
Or how one
Well, I think you'd be okay until you fell. But
that's right. How would you get up when you fall over?
Yeah.
You skate carefully.
Yes.
I actually stopped and looked some up when I read your story, because I was like, she couldn't make that up. I mean, that was just one of those things that, everything's weirder than what the mind of man can invent, or whatever it was that Holmes said. That's true when you start talking about pig fat skating rinks. I just, I thought it was great. So, well, I also liked in your story how Watson's used a little bit. Holmes uses him as he does from time to time, and that you made Watson kind of happy, sad, angry about it. Like he didn't really know how he felt about being a pawn a little bit. He got played, basically. Watson got played as a tool, so which we would expect, but still. But yeah, I thought that was very clever. So thank you for that.
I also always think Watson's been, especially as sometimes he's been portrayed in the media and in some of the films and things. I think Watson's smarter than sometimes he's been portrayed, and I think he even recognized who was the one who wrote the letter and stuff. He said, "However impossible, come on, who else says that?"
Yeah, it always makes me think of that line of that. I haven't lived with you for 7 years for nothing, you know, so something that you've got to soak it in and use it. So, okay, before I let you go, tell me real quick, what is this about your Holmes and werewolf story? Didn't you say
Oh,
something about you had a werewolf or you thought about a
oh,
werewolf
well,
in
yeah,
your
no,
home?
our local society, the crew of the Bark Lone Star, has been putting out um, anthologies for several years now. And this year, the theme is Holmes Rejected, something that the Strand magazine just could not, said, there's no way we can publish this. And I thought, what would be one of the weirdest things that you could write about? And it was,
Oh, okay.
imagine the Hound of the Baskervilles is actually a werewolf who bites
Oh,
Sherlock
okay.
Holmes.
All right. So did you write
And
that
so,
story?
yes, I did. It's called The
All
Beast
right.
of Baker Street. And uh, it'll be in the anthology that comes out. It'll be probably January before we'll have the anthologies done before Christmas, but until Steve always hands out any contributors copies during the BSI weekend, and after
Okay.
that, it'll be available. We always put them up on Barnes and Noble. Um,
Okay.
so,
Okay. So, all right. So the hound is a werewolf. See, I was thinking in
uh-huh.
my mind, I had,
Oh,
only
don't
remember
worry.
bits and
No,
bobs, and I thought it was Holmes. It's like,
it
okay.
will be.
Okay. No, don't tell us. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that happy note, let's go to the Australian. Steve, where are you? Are you still here?
There he is. Yep, he's
I'm
there.
here.
You're here.
Yeah, I'm the lucky
Okay.
one. It's 2 p.m. here. It's awesome. It's fine. Well, it's 3 p.m. now, but um, don't have to get up at stupid hour like you poor guys. So all good.
Okay, so these folks probably already know you, but go ahead and tell us, the rest of us, who you are and tell
Not a
us a little
problem.
bit about what you write.
So yes, thanks to the Sydney Passengers. I think I presented about a year or so ago.
Yes, correct.
So it's pretty cool.
Welcome
And
back, Steve.
Lee obviously knows me, so he's recently got my anthologies. And the other person I have to probably thank for being here at all is Derrick, because Derrick published my first Sherlock Holmes story about 7 years ago, and also recommended me to Margie to write my story. So far I've got about 38 published Sherlock Holmes stories and another 150 other stories published around the place. So as Lee showed, my recent collections, the volumes 3 and 4 of the Curious Cases of Sherlock Holmes recently came out earlier this year, so it's all good. Yeah, so my story was the Fiend of the Cooperage. So when I read through some of the stories, I thought, this one's good. It's a creature feature, so that dovetailed nicely into my other avenue, which is horror. So I wrote a lot of horror stories, a lot of sci-fi stories and things like that. So that was perfect for me. So I did it as a complete rewrite, just resetting the whole thing, still in Africa on the west coast of Africa, and just bringing Holmes and Watson along for the ride. So the changes I had to make a couple of changes. One was to drop another character because it just ended up with too many primary characters in there. And it also gave it a bit of. I dropped one of the characters, and he was actually written out early on, and that gave it a little bit more pathos because the lone survivor at the African outpost was mourning the death of his longtime friend and things like that, and then just threw them into the whole horror aspect of it, and it was pretty cool because. At one stage, Holmes, Watson, and Meldrum, the captain of the boat that they're on, who is one of Watson's old friends, are stuck in a tin shed overnight during a howling storm. So I got to sort of set it up as just imagining how they would react to that sort of horror thing, just with a thin veil of tin protecting them from the horrors outside and from the imagined horror that they're trying to figure out is who's killing people in this outpost. So that was pretty cool. But I mean, the beauty of it was that the story wrote itself because the plot's already there. It was just retrofitting it to have Holmes and Watson in there and make it so that Holmes was actually piecing it together as he went along, because the story itself solves itself right at the end. The killer is unmasked as they step out and look out across the little bay that the outpost is on and things like that. So I just had to make it a little bit more Holmes friendly, shall we say, a few clues along the way, and then when he does point out to the culprit out in the bay, it all makes sense. So it was a pleasure to write.
Okay, so the culprit in Doyle's original story, they do exist, correct?
Yes. It's nothing supernatural. It's completely natural. I didn't want to give away the ending in case anyone hasn't read it.
Oh,
but I'm happy if you do, if you want to. Makes it easy.
It's just something out in the bay. Okay, so
there's something out there in the water.
in the water. I liked that you talked a little bit about, and I think Doyle did in the original story too, about how the water is dangerous already because of infection.
Yes.
So they're nervous about the air, and they're nervous about the water, and they're talking about you got to get inside before the sun sets because you don't need to be breathing.
And it was set on the edge of
great.
Yeah. Sorry, it was set on the edge of the jungle, so there was all basically they're facing onto the jungle with all the wilds and unknowns presented to them, and a river runs down through the jungle into the bay that the outpost is on, and a storm has washed some stuff out of that deep, dark jungle into the bay, and that's that sort of fear factor is built up, and the bacteria and all that sort of stuff that they're fighting as well. So the the presence of the little outpost in the middle of all that is like a sanctuary, if you like, and then the fact that there's something invading the sanctuary as well to heighten that terror, I suppose. It's fun to play.
I thought Doyle's original story was very clever. I liked yours too, but he really had some good stuff there, foreshadowing and everybody out of their element, and yeah, I thought that was just pretty fantastic. Of course, we have racism and all of that we can talk about on a different thing because we're having fun.
I tried to dial that down.
Ignore that right now. One thing I liked on your Kickstarter interview, you said that you had gone camping quite a lot and been out in squalls, and so you felt like you knew exactly what was happening inside the building.
Yeah, so
you want to tell us a little bit about that?
So part of with young kids, my kids are now in their late teens, but when they were younger, we had to do a family holiday down the beach, as you do in Australia, every year, and the easiest way to do that is go camping. So we started out with tents and what's called a camper trailer, which is basically a fold-out massive tent. And of course, Australian coastal weather in summer is always either blazingly hot or a thunderstorm comes in and blasts you with more water in an hour than you can cope with in a lifetime. So you've only got a thin layer of canvas between you and the thunderstorm raging outside. And the kids, as they grow a bit older, didn't want to be attached to our camper trailer, so they were out in tents. And at one stage, they were out in tents under a little shelter. And we were in bed one morning, and there was a squall outside, and suddenly you hear screams coming from the kids, raced outside, and the gazebo that they were sitting under had flown off. It was starting to fly off, and luckily someone walking down to the toilets had grabbed it before it could go and kill anyone else in the caravan park. So those were the fun times.
Okay. Well, you were the perfect person to write this story then, because you could sit in that building with Holmes and Watson.
Yeah, there's nothing better, and especially when you have to then pack the whole thing up when it's soaking wet. That's always fun. So.
Yeah, it never really dries out. Yeah.
We bought a caravan now, so that doesn't happen.
Oh, okay. You're set then. Yeah. All right. So we'll see you again. What's coming next? Your next writing?
So I'm joining Naching in the Solar Ponds Year of Mystery book. So that's I completely forgot about that story. Anyway.
Derrick.
These 6-month time lags between finishing a story and it getting published is always I remember that. Funny enough, after the Into the Fire was published, had another kaiju, so a big creature story published in a Queensland-based anthology called The Attack of the Colossal Creatures from Planet X or something like that. So very Holmesian, very right down there with Sherlock Holmes stories. I've written another couple of essays hopefully for Derrick's upcoming non-fiction stuff. One was I went and so on the same theme as we were discussing today, I read The Lost World by Conan Doyle, and then wrote an essay on how I felt that The Lost World actually had an impact on later sci-fi in the 20th century, and things like Jurassic Park and things like that. And wrote another Solar Ponds essay on the rise of the Cthulhu mythos and August Derleth. So that's a bit fun. So that's fine if you don't know anything of that. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
And at the
We are
moment,
one prolific group, I'm telling you.
And at the moment, I'm actually working on my novel. So I finally I got a bit of a lag in times. I've about 20,000 words into a sci-fi horror novel that was based on a screenplay I wrote many years ago. So busy, always keep busy.
Yeah, sounds like it. I'm always telling Derrick that I'm convinced he only sleeps like 10 minutes a night or something. So I bet you do too. You might do 15. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, stretch it out.
All right. Thank you. Katy, Darby, you're here. Oh, we're not hearing you, Katy.
Sorry, I was wearing headphones because I thought that might help, but can you hear me all right now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, so tell us who you are, Miss Katy, and a little bit about what you did for the book.
Sure. So I'm a writer and editor and writing teacher in the UK, in London, and the story that I chose was B24, now known as the Mannering Hall Murder. Although it's so interesting listening to the other authors because the other ones that I pitched to my writing group were The Club-Footed Grocer and one of the other ones that was mentioned. I can't remember. Anyway, I was listening to other people talking about how they approached it. So I had the unicorn one. That's right. But yeah, I was like, okay, I can think of ways to make this something that's supernatural natural. But actually, you know what? The unicorn one, I was completely baffled by it. I was like, how would you? I was like, it's got to be a real horse, but how on earth do you get it in and out? So I ended up with this one, much preferred. And that is the one about the prisoner. He's writing from prison saying there's been a miscarriage of justice. I did commit a burglary, but I didn't commit the murder of which I'm accused. And this is how it really happened. So, yeah.
Okay. So I was fascinated how you brought in contemporary forensics into your story. Did you have to do a lot of research to do that?
Not as much as you might think. I mean, it was really lucky. It was just totally fortuitous. I thought the only way, because putting Holmes into a cold case, the prisoner's in prison, and I was like, a couple of years later, I think it probably was the first cold case Holmes story that I'd done. He can't go and investigate the scene, so he has to use the evidence that remains. And I like the idea of the bloodied nightgown being kept in the Black Museum in Scotland Yard as evidence at the time, but also a sort of a grisly memento of a famous case. So I was thinking, and the blood splatter would show how the throat was cut, and we watched a bit of Dexter. So starting to think about that, I was like, when did blood splatter analysis begin? And it was actually around about that time, by lucky coincidence. I'm really glad it wasn't 5 years later. But of course, you can always have Holmes think of these things first, and then other people discover them.
That's right.
So Edward Petrowski, Polish doctor, published an analysis of blood splatter by murdering bunnies, unfortunately. That was his research, and he's a real guy. He had a real monograph, looked it up, it's in German. But I was able to use him as a character, and also to bring in his work. When they visit the Black Museum, they look at the blood spatters, and things don't add up for Holmes in terms of what B24 claims to have happened in the story, or claims he has heard and not seen. So that gave me just the tiniest little kind of window of opportunity within the story. I was reading it through very, very carefully. And right at the beginning, he says, these are things that I've seen with my own eyes. And then there's a bit where he's behind a door and he can only hear what happens and he can't see. And I'm like, right, that's my opportunity to give the reader a kind of more surprising conclusion, because, we've basically got three characters here. One of whom is murdered, and one or other of the others is the murderer, or at least that's what we think. So I had to use that and the blood spatter stuff to come up with a hopefully surprising conclusion, non-obvious conclusion that also fit the facts of the case. I was just taking everything that was in the original story as gospel and trying to work around it, rather than kind of reading it and then jumping off it, changing details. That was my challenge, was to make it fit perfectly with the original story.
So Holmes does a little bit of his theatrics in your story, which I thought was pretty great. Lots.
Yeah.
Do you have experience with theater makeup and things? I mean, because you wrote that very convincingly.
Not so much with Meg. I mean, I've done a lot of theatre. So I mean, I guess probably more than most people. But I mean, I had to be dead on stage once for like half an hour in an Edinburgh Fringe run. Done a little bit of stage blood, but I was just, I just sort of improvised around what Victorians would have used at the time and what Holmes would have used. Yeah, no, he goes full on crime scene reenactment. For the climax of the story. Watson plays a part. Lady Mannering is involved, and Holmes plays Lord Mannering. He reenacts the victim. So yeah, with with kind of messy results. Yeah, I just thought, it's what he would do, and because he kind of sort of intellectually reenacts the stories whenever he's kind of working out what happens. I just thought we can't just have him sitting looking at photographs and thinking, and we have to have a bit of action in this story, because even though it's a cold case, and then we have to kind of bring it to life. So that's why I wanted to put that in there. And of course Holmes has got this weakness for the theatrical anyway. So yeah, I thought that would work.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And then you also brought in the autopsy photos and all of that. I thought that was just pretty great how you worked that, weave it all in.
We've got a local doctor who's obsessed with photography. I've just started getting into the Peter Wimsey mysteries, and it's so interesting how Bunter, Wimsey's man, he's got interest in photography. He's got his own little dark room in the butler's pantry, and he goes around taking crime scene photos. I'm like, well, yeah, we can't examine the body. Bit late for that. It's sort of 3 or 4 years later. So yeah, the doctor took autopsy photos and shows them. It's rather gruesome. Based on a friend of mine, actually. Whenever I write the Sherlock Holmes stories, I ask people if they want to be in them. And my friend who I met at university as a medical student then, he's the doctor, Dr. Lawrence Mason. So he's immortalized, I should say, in this story. Yeah, so we've got crime scene photos, we've got blood spatter analysis, we've got reenactments, Crime Watch style. It's quite modern, surprisingly.
Yeah, it's pretty great. So thank you. So tell us what else you're writing right now. What else are you working on?
Sure. Okay, well, I've fairly recently finished a couple more stories for Belanger, like a lot of people. It's 1890 and 91, I think. Anyway, it's one of the Sherlock Holmes Year of Mystery series. One of them is Drood. It's I like to use historical figures. So Wilkie Collins died in, tries to remember, maybe 1890. That might be the 1891. And the idea is that he sets the dying Wilkie Collins, also great Victorian novelist, huge friend of Dickens, sets Holmes and Watson on the trail of the missing last half of Edwin Drood, which obviously Dickens died and it was unfinished. He'd only written kind of six staves, the first half basically. So he sets them on the trail for that, down to Dickens's former house, Gad's Hill Place, which of course the Sherlock Holmes Society, not no, I'm thinking of the other one. Sorry, no, Gad's Hill Place, yes, is Dickens's former home. I'm thinking of Conan Doyle's former home, and the other one is set at my old college in Oxford, Somerville College, which Dorothy L. Sayers also went to, and it's a body that just appears. It's a women's college, or used to be, and Holmes and Watson go down there. Holmes is giving a lecture, and a character from a former story that I wrote is down there for a gaudy or celebratory dinner. A body appears on the quad, and they have to hush it up because it's a man's body, and they've got no idea how it got there. And it'll be such a huge scandal, bad enough to have a corpse, worse if it's a male corpse in a women's college. So Holmes has to, keep it quiet, but also investigate, find out what happened. So those are the two. Oh, and Blue John Gap as well. I heard about that, and here's my little piece of Blue John. Anyone wants to see that's what it looks
thank
like.
you.
I went down the Blue John Gap about 6 or 7 years ago with a baby strapped to my front, and I've got some photos. Once I get those off my old laptop, I'll be writing a little thing about Blue John Gap for you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, so I think that's all of my folks who are here today. We actually have 17 different stories in the book. Not everyone obviously could come tonight, or you guys would never have anything else to do today but listen to us talk. So I think that's all. I will say quickly, my story is called The Problem of the Dreaming Man, and it is a sequel to The Leather Funnel. I've always been kind of fascinated with the leather funnel. I've told this story to everybody who will ever listen, only because Doyle wrote a letter to the editor of the Strand complaining about some things. And he said in that letter that the leather funnel he thought was as close as he ever got to literature. And so it kind of fascinates me every time I read it. It's like, what was it that kind of enchanted him about this story? And what did he find that was literary about it? And it does have, the man has a mesmerizing dream and sees into the past. And so it had a fun supernatural element to it. So in a way, because is a dream really a supernatural element? But he dreamed something that actually happened about the thing that was laying on the table beside him where he was sleeping. So there you did have that element. So that was a lot of fun, was how to bring Holmes into that. And so I did a sequel of this man who had the dream. We're 18 years on, and he's kind of driven himself almost mad trying to figure out how it happened, and he wants it to happen again, and he can't make it happen. So it is kind of a fun story. You might like it. I've had received some really nice notes about the ending. People really kind of like it. So it was like, yay, it worked. So I will say that. So, all right, passengers, thank you so much for letting us talk to you today. It was so much fun. We love to talk about the book. I hope you'll think about it. I bet Derrick could even tell us where you could buy it if you decided to. And
Yes.
since I sort of forgot to look. So and that's all for today. So
Great,
thank
Margie.
you.
Thank you very, very much. And thank you to all the authors who joined us. I had a couple of questions I wouldn't mind throwing at you to see if you can get some ideas.
Sure.
And with each author selecting the story of Doyle's that they wanted to pair with, was it very hard for the last few authors with nothing much to choose from? Or how do they?
I only had one person turn me down, but even when they were down to like 3 left or 2 left, and he just said he couldn't see a way. But he did tell me, he said, I'm not sure I could have found my way in any of them. Otherwise, everyone, even when we kind of got down to, oh, here's all we have left, and I'm sorry, nobody seemed to have a problem with choosing one.
That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, David Markham said he specifically wanted to choose one he had never read because he wanted to be challenged. So he said he kind of just like stuck his finger on the page and said, okay, that one. But I send invitations out like 2 or 3 at a time. And if I hear somebody, then I send 2 or 3 more because I didn't want to get right down and say, oh, I have one story. Will you write it? So originally I had planned to write with Nancy. We were going to write the cat together, and someone else was going to write the leather funnel, and that person had to drop out because of a health issue. And so it just seemed like, okay, I should just do this rather than go around try to find somebody late. And now I'm so glad that it worked out that way because that story was so much fun to write, and I'm so pleased with it.
Excellent. Well, it's fantastic. There's so much imagination amongst all your writers. You come up with ideas to match to a Doyle story. I understand the Kickstarter program was very successful. It's all been sold out. So maybe you or Derrick can tell us where we can order the book online. What's the best place for that?
Derrick?
Sure. You can order the book from, it should be any bookstore now. I think our distribution now has gotten to the point where, because sometimes it takes a month or so to get to everybody, but I believe it's open now to everyone. And so you can do that, and it's available on the Belanger Books website as well. So that's what I would suggest. Either check out that. I mean, if the simplest way probably just to go to Amazon. But if you have a local bookstore you love, they should be able to order it as well.
All right. We'll certainly put that in our magazine when we write this meeting up, where to order the book from. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else got any other questions you'd like to put to the authors? Well, that's fantastic. So if that's no more questions, then we may call it a day. Again, thank you very much for joining us from your respective time zones. I'm so glad that the project has been a success, and both volumes are now available in print. So best of luck with the reviews, and I hope many, many copies are sold.
All right. Thank you, Bill. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thanks again, guys.
Bye-bye for now.